It was 2:30 p.m. when the rotors of the MH-60 Black Hawk sliced through the sky over northern Oregon. The trees below swayed like dark green waves, thick and tangled, swallowing up light. Aboard the helicopter, 6 Navy SEALs sat tight in full combat gear. Silent, except for the low hum of their comms. No one spoke unless they had to. This wasn't a routine op. It wasn't even a standard manhunt. They were chasing a ghost. The target was a former special operations asset. Name redacted. History classified. What they were told was enough to put them on edge. Highly trained. Highly dangerous. Off the grid. Intel said the subject was hiding in an uncharted section of forest, just southeast of the Cascade Range. The team had eyes in the sky. Thanks to a ScanEagle drone feeding live footage into their systems, it showed terrain, heat signatures, a rough idea of where to land. That was the last piece of technology that worked the way it was supposed to. By the time the Black Hawk dropped them in a narrow clearing, the sun had dipped just enough to turn the woods a colder shade of green. They hit the ground running. Chief Petty Officer Daniels led the stack, followed by Petty Officers Ryan, Torres, and Kell, with Hospital Corpsman Lynn and their comms tech, Petty Officer Blake, covering rear. All standard procedure. Sweep. Isolate. Contain. Bring the target in. Except nothing about the forest felt standard. Within minutes, the drone feed flickered, then went black. GPS devices started throwing false coordinates, bouncing signals in loops. Comms were scratchy. Lynn did a systems check on her SATCOM, but it might as well have been a paperweight. They kept moving. Trees closed in tighter. Visibility dropped. Sound changed. Quieter. No wind. No animals. Just the creak of branches and the muffled crunch of boots on damp underbrush. It was Daniels who noticed the first sign, a false tripwire made from fishing line, set low and placed intentionally off-center. It wasn't meant to injure anyone. It was meant to be seen. A message. You're being watched. Then Torres spotted drag marks. Not fresh. Not human. Like something heavy had been pulled across the forest floor, then brushed over with pine needles. Too clean. Too calculated. Ryan stopped at the base of a tree and pointed up. A camera. Not active. Just hanging there. Dead and dusty. But recently placed. Someone knew how to bait them. Daniels made the call to fan out in a wedge formation, covering a 100-yard radius. Sweep the area. Regroup in 10 minutes. 10 minutes never came. Blake was the first to go. Lynn called his position, but there was no reply. When Daniels and Kell doubled back, all they found was Blake's pack on the ground, neatly zipped, rifle still slung over the shoulder strap. No blood, no drag marks, just gone. Next was Kell. One moment he was in visual contact, the next, silence. No gunfire, no sound of struggle. By the time the realization settled in, only 4 of them remained. Ryan's breathing changed. He gripped his weapon tighter. Lynn scanned the treetops, her voice low and steady over the short range. Daniels didn't need to say it out loud. Someone was hunting them. Someone who knew how they moved, how they thought, how they would react. And they were already 2 steps behind. It was just past 4:15 p.m. when Ryan crouched next to what used to be Kell's position. The light was dimming under the canopy, shadows moving faster than the clouds. His gloves brushed over the forest floor, fingers trailing the exact place where Kell had gone dark. No blood, no broken branches, but the way his gear lay there told its own story. Vest unbuckled, radio detached and placed gently to the side, rifle still clean. Nothing was scattered or damaged. Someone had taken him out without a fight, without a sound, and done it with care. That wasn't the work of a chaotic killer. That was surgical. Ryan called Lynn over with a hand signal. She moved low and quiet, her eyes scanning before every step. The moment she reached him, she went to one knee and examined the scene without saying a word. After a few seconds, she whispered what they were both thinking. Whoever did this had training. Not just any training. Military. Special ops level. Daniel signaled for the team to pull in tighter. They regrouped beneath the thickest section of pine. Just beyond a small ridge, Lynn pointed out smudges on the bark above shoulder height, where something had been tied off. Maybe a blind. Maybe a decoy. There were shallow indentations in the soil, but no footprints. Too clean. Too deliberate. The kind of movement taught in sniper school. That's when Ryan remembered. Not the face, just the way she moved. It came to him in a flash. Back at Quantico, one of their sniper instructors had been a woman. She never spoke unless necessary. Never smiled. But when she took a shot, the range would go dead, silent. Nobody asked questions. She never gave a name. Everyone just called her the Ghost. Ryan looked at Daniels and quietly said what none of them wanted to admit. This wasn't a squad hitting them from multiple flanks. It wasn't a trap laid by some random rogue militia. This was one person, and she knew how they thought. She knew how they cleared a sector, how they moved when scared, how they'd react when comms failed. Daniels didn't respond right away. He just stared into the trees, jaw clenched, jaw muscles tight, like he was grinding every memory into place. He finally said the one thing that made everyone shiver. We trained under her. Lynn looked up again, her voice calm but low. If it's her, she's not trying to win a fight. She's proving a point. The forest felt tighter after that. The trees seemed to lean in closer. There was no random enemy waiting out there. No unknown face. It was someone they had once respected, maybe even admired. And now, she was using everything they had learned, everything she had taught them to erase them one by one. It was just after 5:10 p.m. when Ryan dropped. One clean shot. No hecho. Just the faint crack of the round breaking air. It came from the east, from somewhere beyond the low ridge that had seemed empty seconds before. He never saw it coming. No warning. No struggle. His body didn't jerk or spasm. It just folded into the brush like a puppet with the strings cut. When Daniels reached him, there was nothing to do. The entry wound on the side of his neck was small, clean. The exit wasn't. Daniels didn't speak. He only looked at Lynn. Then at Torres. Both of them nodded without being asked. This wasn't panic. Not yet. But it was close. The shot had come from a distance. Based on the angle, the shooter was elevated, probably prone, and at least 800 meters out. That kind of precision meant the rifle was something like an M110 SASS, suppressed, zeroed perfectly, calibrated to hit a moving target through cover. No guessing, just calculation. Lynn pulled out her AN divided by PVS 31 seconds and scanned the ridge. Nothing. Heat signatures weren't registering. The canopy was too dense. The light was slipping fast. Torres launched the Recon UAV, hoping to get overhead eyes. It buzzed up, banked right, and started its programmed route. Within 20 seconds, the feed turned to static. Dead signal. Jammer. Lynn said quietly. Not store-bought. This was military grade. That drone should have been untouchable, unless someone knew the frequency hop pattern. Daniels adjusted his headset, tapped the side twice to signal fallback formation. They moved fast but deliberate, forming a triangle spread with 5-yard gaps. Eyes scanning, weapons raised, but the forest didn't care. It closed in tighter with every step. The wind didn't blow. The birds didn't chirp. Daniels whispered into his mic. Listen for the shot. Echo pattern. Barrel flash. Anything. Then he stopped walking, lowered his rifle, closed his eyes. He tilted his head slightly. Not in surrender, but in focus. There. A brief reflection. Glass. She was watching. He turned to Lynn. She's not just killing us. She's running the battlefield. Torres looked around like the trees had turned against them. Every movement felt slower now. every breath louder. The fear wasn't loud. It was cold, sharp. Daniels realized something else. She was letting them move, choosing who went next, not because she had to, because she could. She wasn't hunting them like prey. She was teaching them, reminding them, and worst of all, she was calm, controlled, patient. They had been trained to handle chaos. She thrived in silence. Torres stepped over a root and paused. His eyes caught something on the bark, a smudge of oil, fingerprint-sized, fresh. She'd been there, watching, maybe minutes ago, maybe still nearby. Daniels crouched and whispered one last thing before they moved again. This isn't combat. This is a message. The forest said nothing back. Her name was Avery Miles. Before all this, before the silence and the trees swallowed her whole, she wore the uniform of the United States Marine Corps. Recon sniper. One of the best. They used to call her Top Gunner. Not because she was loud or showy, but because she never missed. At the range, she could hit steel plates at over 1,000 meters without blinking. Calm, centered, deadly accurate. The kind of shooter who didn't need to say much. Her bullets spoke for her. Quantico knew her. Every class that passed through sniper school had some story about her. The woman with the 1,000-yard stare who showed up at 7:15 a.m. and disappeared before sunset. No one saw her outside the range. No one dared to ask questions. She wasn't a legend because people whispered about her. She was a legend because she delivered results and then disappeared like smoke. Ryan had trained under her. He never forgot. She wasn't like the other instructors who barked and paced and made a show of their experience. She taught with her presence. You watched her load a round. You watched her breathe. And somehow, you knew what excellence looked like. You didn't just want to pass the course. You wanted to earn her nod. Just once. But legends don't last in a system built to hide them. Avery made a mistake. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. She spoke up. A commanding officer, someone with too many stars and not enough honor, crossed the line. She filed the report. Did everything by the book, and they buried it. Not the officer. The complaint, then they reassigned her, took her out of the field, pulled her from the rifle, and handed her a clipboard. She didn't argue, not out loud. She packed her gear, trained the next group, stayed quiet. But inside, something cracked. The Marine Corps didn't fire her. They just erased her step by step, until one day, she was gone. No farewell, no ceremony, no record of the woman who once taught the best how to shoot straight and disappear faster. Daniels remembered hearing a rumor. Something about her walking off base one morning and never coming back. No one filed a missing persons report. No one looked for her. She became just another story, another shadow, a name that faded with time. But she didn't forget, not the faces, not the tactics, not the silence. Now, standing in the same woods she once taught them to read like a book, it made sense. Every trap, every angle, every vanished footprint, she was doing what she had always done, working in the quiet, controlling the field, one move at a time. She wasn't a ghost. Ghosts fade. She had become something more, something the system couldn't control. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous warrior is the one it chose to forget. It was 6:40 p.m. when Daniels reached the crest. His knees burned from the climb, muscles slow and heavy, breath controlled but short. He stayed low, crouched behind a cluster of boulders scattered with lichen, and pulled his monocular from the pouch on his plate carrier. The sun had dipped behind the ridgeline, casting long shadows across the valley below. He scanned the west, sweeping carefully, ignoring the ache in his hands. Then he caught it. A flicker, barely there. A brief flash of light bouncing off glass, just above the tree line. Not a mistake. A reflection. It was her. The sniper, Avery. He didn't reach for his weapon. Not yet. Instead, He pulled the small signal mirror from his chest rig. His hands were steady. He angled it slowly, just enough to catch the last of the fading light and bounce it toward the ridge. A pause, then another flash, deliberate, slow. She was watching. She knew he'd see it. He adjusted his radio, kept the volume low, switched frequencies, and transmitted on the secure band. "Daniel's here. If you're hearing me, I know it's you." A few seconds of silence, then a soft click. Her voice came through like a whisper across a canyon. "Took you long enough?" Daniels stayed crouched, eyes locked on the tree line. Why, there was a beat. Then her answer, "Because I had to remind you, before they erase me. You could have taken us all in minutes. I could have, but I wanted you to feel it. The silence, the stillness. That's what it feels like when they forget you. When you disappear, and no one even asks where you went." Daniels clenched his jaw. His grip tightened around the radio. But his rifle stayed down. "You didn't have to do this. I didn't have a choice. Not back then. I do now." He looked through the monocular again. No movement. No shimmer. Just trees. Shadows. She was still there. She was always there. He wondered how many times she had been within arm's reach over the past 12 hours, and simply let them pass. "You're still one of us." Not anymore. That part of me died the day they turned their backs. I just buried the body here. A slow rumble passed overhead. Daniels looked up. A small UAV sliced across the clouds, its red marker light blinking steady. Recon flight. Backup was inbound. He keyed the mic one last time. "You gonna run?" She didn't hesitate. "No, I'm just going home." The transmission cut. Daniel stood up slowly. There was no shot, no flash, no sound. Just whined in the trees and the low hum of rotors growing louder in the distance. He turned in a slow circle, scanning the perimeter one more time. Nothing moved. She was already gone. By the time the rescue team arrived, he said nothing about her. No report. No statement. Just the truth he carried alone. Some people fight for medals, some for country, and a few for memory. He never saw her again. But whenever the woods went quiet, he listened, and he waited. Because somewhere out there, the ghost still walked. Not to kill, not to win, just to be remembered. It was just after 10:20 a.m. when Ryan stepped through the black iron gates of the cemetery. The sun was out, but the wind still carried a chill that slipped through his uniform. Rows of marble headstones stretched in perfect lines across the hill. Names and ranks carved into silence. He moved slowly, each step more careful than the last, until he found the one he had come for. The marker was simple. No date of birth, no date of death, just a name. SGT. Avery Miles. Recon sniper. Not forgotten. The words weren't part of any official burial. Daniels had pulled strings, quiet ones. No ceremony. Just a place, a name, and something solid to remind them that she had existed. Ryan stood there without speaking. He held a bouquet of white roses in one hand, thumb rubbing the edge of the plastic wrap. He didn't place them down right away, just stared at the stone like maybe it would answer. The breeze moved through the trees behind him, soft and familiar, like leaves brushing against a rifle sling or the breath of someone you thought was gone. He could almost feel her watching. No gunshots, no echo, just the stillness she had always owned. He finally set the flowers down and stepped back, folded his hands behind his back, said nothing. In his mind, her voice still lived. That calm way she delivered truth. No weight, no apology, just steady hands and eyes that had seen too much and still stayed open. Ryan didn't need to tell anyone what happened in that forest. The story didn't belong to him. It belonged to her. To every quiet warrior who chose silence over glory, who gave everything, even when no one asked for it, and who vanished before the world ever said thank you. As he turned to leave, the wind picked up again. The flag overhead snapped once, then settled. The moment passed. His voice came later. Long after he had driven away, long after he was alone with his thoughts. A whisper only he could hear. Some warriors fight in silence. Some battles are never seen, but the strongest ones leave no sound behind.